Welcome back to the Warehouse Podcast. I'm Tyler.
I'm Jesse.
And I'm Eli.
And we are back with our way too late trade deadline recap show. Since the last time we recorded, the Orioles have gone 4-4. They've been pretty decent and pretty good since the All-Star break, really. I think they're 10-6 since the All-Star break.
10-7 after last night's loss. Yeah.
Okay. So they've split a 2-game series with the Marlins, split a 4-game series with the Tigers, and currently has split the first 2 games of the Yankees series in the Bronx, which is being wrapped up as we record right now. I think the O's are ahead 3-2. So we're looking good for a winning road trip.
It was really well, it wasn't good, but I was headed home last night, and of course the Orioles are in the Bronx right now, so I was taking the D train home last night, and one of as I'm on the train, I see a group of Yankee fans, like 4 or 5 of them. It's not a family. It seems like coworkers or something like that, friends, So, I'm feeling good coming off our 4-1 win or whatever it was the previous night, and I'm feeling excited. It was what?
7-1.
Oh, coming off our 7-1 win the previous night, and I was feeling really good about it. And I said, I had my Oriole shirt on actually underneath my work shirt, which I had taken off at that point. And I just made a comment to them. I was really excited, go O's, something like that. Just kind of being excited about the previous win and feeling good about the game that night, and then we lost 13-1. So,
and had we already lost 13-1 when you were gloating?
No,
okay.
No. Fortunately, I wasn't there to see them after the game. Right?
Okay.
Yes, it was all pre-game, so I got to hide afterwards.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
And are you living in the Bronx now, Jesse? Have we talked about that?
No, I'm not.
Okay. What part of New York are you in? You don't have to give us a street address, but
sure. Yes. Inwood.
Okay.
So
no one knows where that is.
It's in Manhattan. It's in Manhattan,
okay,
but it's like the very top of it. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, anyway, cool.
No, Baltimore Oriole fans probably don't know where it is.
No, nobody does. But yeah, we're back in 3 different states now. Eli in Florida, me repping the hometown. I'm in Baltimore County, so
exactly.
We stay true.
Right as the pandemic is flaring up once again, now we're all back at 3
We've
states,
all flown the nest, yeah.
Yeah, right.
All right, well, let's get into the big topic of the week. Trade deadline wrapped up on Friday at 4 p.m. Jesse was a little confused about that, was texting us later in the day saying he's really excited about the moves the O's are going to make the next day. And we're like, oh, Jess, it's over. It's happened already. But anyway.
It was unfortunate, yeah. I was getting off work. I was excited to come and, get ready to watch and see everything that was happening. And then, Tyler killed my excitement.
You must have thought it was the most wild, trade deadline eve ever, right?
Right.
We had even talked about it because the MLB offices were closed on Saturday. They pushed it up a day.
Yeah,
we went through the whole thing.
Right.
It's all right. Jesse, we're recording right now. Jesse's literally laying in bed, so it's not always
I'm sitting on my bed.
Okay. Anyway.
And that's mainly due to the fact of lack of better options for recording. So
yeah. That New York City living, not much space.
Exactly. Right.
All right. Well, there was a bunch of
I don't have a whole house here.
Yeah. You're not like Eli and myself, who are homeowners and adulting real hard.
Correct.
But it was a pretty wild trade deadline. All kinds of big names went places. Max Scherzer, Trey Turner, Joey Gallo, Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant. Just everybody going all over the place. The Orioles did get involved. Eli, do you want to tell us who we traded, the big names that got dealt?
If you can call it involved, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how involved the Orioles got, but we sent minor league reliever Sean Armstrong to the Rays for some cash considerations, and we sent a rehabbing Freddie Galvez to the Phillies for a 23-year-old righty Tyler Birch.
Nice. We love that. I think Birch, his big thing was he led the Phillies organization in swinging strike rate, I believe. So, the O's like those sort of metrics. That's kind of a guy they're going for. He is a relief pitching prospect. I think Fangraphs has him 38th overall on our prospect list or something. So he is he's a legitimate prospect, but he's not, not going to be starting games or anything like that. I don't know. From my perspective, I think this is about what I thought the Orioles were going to do. I thought a Trey Mancini trade was going to be tough to swing. Any of the big trades of like John Means or Cedric Mullins was going to be a lot to get done during the season. Jesse, you were a little disappointed, it sounds like, and you look a little bit down right now. What was this not the trade deadline that you were expecting from the Orioles?
I was very disappointed overall. And yeah, I guess I feel, well, one, I tell myself this after the trade deadline, it feels like every year, that I need to stop getting my hopes up and excited for Oriole trade deadlines. That's just about what it is. I just have to stop doing it because it generally always disappoints. The Orioles are, I feel like, a notoriously quiet team on the trade deadline. At least they were, particularly like growing up. But yeah, so
well, they were bad growing up, you know.
right,
So they were
for sure.
they were perennially sellers. And what were they? What did they ever sell at the trade deadline that was big?
Right.
Ty Wigginton, I think, got traded to the Phillies at one point. That was kind of noteworthy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Ty
Yeah.
Wigginton.
Yeah, but then even once they got good, the deals were pretty minor. It was a Bud Norris trade here. It was a Gerardo Parra trade there.
Andrew Miller
Was a big one. That was a big
It was
one.
big.
Okay, well, we've got Jesse's take on it, Eli. Sorry, Jesse, go ahead. You want to jump back in?
Sorry. So I was just gonna say it was just disappointing overall. I felt like, the most valuable pieces that we had that could have brought the biggest returns back, mainly Paul Fry and Tanner Scott, didn't get moved, and that was disappointing to me. So
Okay, and Eli, before we got on and started recording, you said something kind of similar about the relievers. Was there one or the other? You said they got close to a deal. Is that right on a reliever?
Mike Elias had said that they were close to trading one reliever. They didn't specify who. However, yeah, I had kind of thought that at least one of them was going to go. I thought it was a pretty good market for relievers. There were a lot of people floating around. We saw Richard Rodriguez, the Pirates go. We saw, I don't know, just a bunch of names going around, Andrew Chafin, et cetera, et cetera. So I had thought that the market was there. And especially because we had those guys in Fry and Scott that were so controllable. I mean, even Sulcer and even Tate to a further extent. I never really thought they were going to move Tate just because of how young he is, how much control we do have over him. But one of those other guys, it did make sense. And it seemed like the market was pretty ripe. It seemed like it was a seller's market. And so I was surprised to not see even one of those guys get moved. That being said, I also realized that they have, at this point, 3.5 years of control over each of those guys. And there's not really any pressure to sell them. I don't think their value is going to go up or down a huge amount by the time the trade deadline rolls around next year. And so they still provide valuable innings to us. There's still a chance that they're on the next good Orioles team. And I don't really see any problem with keeping them either. I would think that Elias probably set a high price on them, and no teams met that, and that is what it is. That being said, I was still surprised.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, a reliever is they're notoriously volatile. So Paul Fry's having a really good season now. He was good last year. That could fall apart before the end of the year. Tanner Scott, we already saw like immediately become like a disaster after the trade deadline, and now he's on the IL with sore knees, I think they said. But
yeah, just one knee.
One knee.
Weird.
Yeah, it's very strange. He just couldn't find the strike zone, which is not that abnormal. But yeah, Jesse, you looked like you were about to say something.
Yeah, so I guess my thing is relievers generally have to go at the trade deadline. They don't unless it's like a really big name like a Craig Kimbrell or something like that. Relievers aren't generally going to get traded in the offseason just because teams have no idea how their bullpens are going to shake out, basically. So you're not going to trade a lot of your good prospects before the beginning of the year when there's still a lot of question marks around a given team's bullpen. So when we're looking at Paul Fry and Tanner Scott, particularly Fry, we can focus in on here now. So we have 3.5 years of Paul Fry, and next year at this time, we're going to have 2.5 years. And Eli said the value isn't going to go up or down much in that time, but the value will drop a good amount because now it's an entire year less of control that organizations have over the player. And I think that does matter in this case. And I think it does matter that sort of control an entire year is a long time. What I would say is, yes, hopefully, if things go according to plan, Paul Fry is not going to implode, and there will be reasonable offers at the next deadline. Maybe he will be one of the elite lefty relievers available at that time, although he was definitely a top tier lefty reliever this time around. But so hopefully the Orioles, I think, are, hoping that everything will go according to plan and they'll be able to deal him next year at this time, and it won't be a big deal. But there are a lot of variables. He could get hurt in the meantime. Anything could happen. He could have an atrocious year. He could have next year be like the beginning of this year for him, right? I mean, let's not forget he is having a very good year now, but at the beginning of this year, he went through some real struggles. So with the volatility of relievers and stuff, the fact that we had a chance to sell probably as high as we could on him, it's disappointing that something couldn't come together. The other quick note that I have on that is that a long time ago I was talking about Cedric Mullins, and I was 100% sure he was not getting dealt at the deadline, and thankfully he is still an Oriole, and I was right about that. But and we all were, to be fair. But what I was saying is that it would make no sense, and in no universe would a Cedric Mullins trade make sense for the Orioles and for another team, and there would not be any sort of agreement on the value of a Cedric Mullins in that situation. And that's for a variety of reasons. For the Orioles and Paul Fry, though, it seems to me like, of course, I can't judge Elias too harshly. I'm not in a situation. I'm not on the phone. I don't know exactly what was offered or what the Orioles could have gotten, or if the Orioles, lacked certain creativity in coming up with a potential deal or something like that. So I can't judge him too harshly. However, it feels like, given who Paul Fry is, given kind of teams' assessments of relievers, given that he has a track record that it stands out relative to a lot of relievers in Major League Baseball, it feels intuitively to me like there should have been a match out there for Paul Fry, and that's why, especially with him even more so than Scott, because Scott kind of underperforms probably to what he's capable of. But for Paul Fry in particular, it feels like there should have been a match in what teams would be willing to give to get him, and what the Orioles would feel like was a fair price for sending him away. So the fact that didn't happen is discouraging and frustrating to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely fair. I mean, the only thing I would say is that, kind of to your point about how reliever deals tend to get done at the trade deadline versus offseason, especially middle relief guys, is that, yes, that team that's acquiring the pitcher, really the bulk of the value, I think, is going to be in like that playoff run. You're trying to bulk up the bullpen because you're going to have, in the postseason, you're pretty much going to go to your starter for like 5 innings. That'd be great. And then you're going to go to like the ace relievers. And Paul Fry could probably be one of those ace relievers. But you are, in Paul Fry's situation, also buying several additional years of team control. And for the Orioles, that could be huge. They need those types of pitchers in the bullpen right now, because the starting pitching options at the higher minors are pretty dire. You need to have like the relievers that do come in, lock down those games. And I think for the Orioles, you got to weigh like, okay, we've got this, we know a pitcher that's pretty good in Paul Fry for the next 3 seasons. What are we we're giving that up for what kind of prospect are we getting back in return? It needs to be a pretty good prospect. It can't be some 20 something ranked middle relief pitcher type of deal or something like that. I think if they could have gotten something similar to what they got for Miguel Castro or Michael Givens last year. Probably more Michael Givens, where they got Tyler Nevin and Taron Vavra, who are legitimate prospects. I think maybe you pull the trigger. I'm not sure that deal ever materialized based on some of the returns that you see for pitchers that are pretty similar. I think Richard Rodriguez is right-handed, obviously, but a pretty good comp where I don't think the return there was quite equal to that. But it's all opinions and stuff like that. So I'm not sure, but yeah, I get where you're coming from.
The one little note that I'm going to throw out regarding the effect that team control has over these guys and their value on the market, I think that value is much less affected by team control when we're talking about relievers, primarily because, if you're going out to get a reliever, it's because you are a competitive team in a situation going for it this year. And it's usually, I think that relievers, more than any other position at the trade deadline, are more market driven than anything else. Like if Trevor Story is out there, which, side note, miraculous that he did not get traded.
Amazing.
I don't know what the Rockies are doing, but if Trevor Story is out there, every good team is going to be in on him just because they're like, we'll figure out a way to make it work. Javi Baez, even though the Mets have Francisco Lindor, the Mets say, we're going to figure out a way to make Javi Baez work on this team because, we're competitive. We're trying to go for it. This is what's happening. And he's got value to any team on earth. A reliever type, despite the number of years of control that they have, because bullpens are volatile, like you were saying, Jess, they go for it in that year. And I think more than in any other situation with any other positions, it's a year by year basis, more so than this guy is controllable for the next few. That's the one point I'll make.
That's definitely true. I mean, absolutely.
The other move, the Freddie Galvez move, I think this is probably the most straightforward move of the deadline of like maybe any team. This was a guy who was the starting shortstop for most of the year, got hurt, and got replaced by Ramon Urias, who's been arguably better than Freddie Galvez was. So I don't know. Eli, were you surprised to see Freddie Galvez go? And, what do you think about the return for him?
I'll admit, I don't really know too much about the return. What Tyler said about his swinging strike rate was definitely true. Elias has said that Tyler Birch has had this huge stuff jump since the pandemic and everything. So, it's all been good stuff. Like Tyler said, he is a reliever though. That being said, I wasn't expecting much to come from a Freddie Galvez trade. I don't think that he had overwhelming value to anyone as a borderline starting shortstop for half a year. And especially a hurt one. I was surprised that he left just because he was hurt. He's still on the IL for the Phillies. I had just thought that he would need to come back and prove he was healthy before anything happened. But the Phillies do have Didi Gregorius. They do have Gene Segura. So I think that Galvez definitely is not going to have a starting role. Well, I don't know. Maybe they can move Segura to third and throw Galvez at second, something like that. But it's a less important role for them is the point. So they're willing to take on a little more risk with the injury.
Yeah, not the biggest, highlight move of the deadline. Jesse, any thoughts on the Galvez to Philly trade? He goes back to where he started his career, I think, or he spent some time
Correct.
there.
Yep.
No, yeah, he returns to where he started. I'm happy for him being able to play for a somewhat contender. Tyler pointed out to us that he made a $250,000 bonus for being traded. Good for him. For the Orioles, at this point, Freddie Galvez played a very critical role for the Orioles the first half of the season, and now his role with the emerging of Urias, his role is pretty not very important to the Orioles at this point. The Orioles aren't concerned with winning or having a solid backup defensive shortstop. The Orioles are going to keep playing Urias at short and ride him out for the rest of the season. The trade is going to give the Orioles the ability to watch him play more, to give him more of an opportunity. If Galvez was still on the team, there would be some expectation they might have to split time or something like that. So I think the move makes sense for all parties involved. So I think it's a win-win-win for the Phillies, Orioles, and Galvez.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about one player who did not get moved real quick. Trey Mancini is still an Oriole. And afterwards, they've talked to Mike Elias. They've talked to Mancini. Mancini said he was happy to stay. And then Elias had kind of an interesting quote about it. He said, I think the future is very bright for Trey Mancini. He's been through something that I don't think any of us can imagine and come out of it like the special person that he is. And he's back to baseball now, and he's going to keep getting better and building off this. And I can't wait to see him do that. I can't wait to see him do that with us. And I hope he's here as long as possible. And ultimately, we're going to kind of take things as we come, like baseball teams do in the major leagues, yada, yada, yada. But I think it's kind of interesting that talking about keeping him long, this has gotten people thinking about an extension for Trey Mancini, which we have talked about on this show. Jesse's crossing his arms and looking very terse right now.
Jesse, we know you're not a fan. We've gone over it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So just a couple things. I mean, one, yes, I an extension I think would not make sense from the Orioles perspective really at any point for Trey Mancini. That's the first point. I also feel like I'm the frustration that you are all observing is that I kind of, something about the Elias comment bothers me, right? Because I feel like he's kind of playing with people a little bit. Like yes, you can acknowledge he's a very good player. You can acknowledge that you like Trey Mancini, that you value having him as a member of the Orioles, etc., without trying to dangle this possibility in front of people. And I don't know, if you liked him so much, then extend him tomorrow. That's a possibility. If you think that he can make a contribution to the Orioles. Now, of course, it wouldn't make any business sense to do that, really, right? Because, extend him a year before he's a free agent if you want to, right? I mean, there's no reason from the Orioles perspective to push it, and maybe he falls off a cliff or has a really bad year, gets injured, right? So there's no reason from the Orioles perspective to push it. But like, if you're talking about him in this sort of way, offer him an extension, right? Like, have him on the team for the next few years, and don't leave any question marks about it. But to kind of suggest this bothers me a little bit, because I know it's just empty words. And
Okay.
I don't.
yeah.
Well, one thing to me, I think you might be overstating the importance of his words. He did also say, like, we're going to keep evaluating it as as major league teams do.
Right.
And saying I'm excited to see him grow for a long, long time is not necessarily saying, he's going to grow here for a long, long time. Elias is just trying to, I don't know. I interpreted it as like the rah-rah, I love Trey. He's going to, be a successful big leaguer for years to come. And I'm super happy for him. And that was how I took it. Not necessarily that we're excited to see him in an Orioles uniform for the next 12 years, It's like that just wasn't how I heard it. And especially coupled with him saying, we're going to keep evaluating. I mean, continuing to evaluate means this is a dynamic situation. We're not putting any stake in any words that I'm saying right now or anything. It's just they're evaluating. They're going to see what happens.
Yeah, just some GM speak to kind of, look, like not that there's many rumors that come out of the Orioles front office. They're very tight-lipped. It's a little bit different than the Dan Duquette, Buck Showalter regime, where I felt like there were leaks about stuff all the time. You don't hear much come out of Mike Elias's squad. And despite that, though, there was no talk about Trey Mancini getting traded. There were no rumors. There was no like, hey, they're talking to X, Y, and Z team about Mancini. It just like didn't happen. So that almost makes the decision for Elias to say like, hey, this is a player that fans like, we like as a person. He's a good player. Let's just keep him around and see maybe what happens in the offseason. He says here, as long as possible. I mean, yeah, I guess as long as possible. I'm sure Trey Mancini would take an extension, but also like you can kind of default to, oh, well, he's got one more year arbitration, and that's like as long as we could possibly keep him, something like that. I don't know. I mean, we can be quick about this. Do you guys think that these words or the fact that Mancini was not traded at the deadline changes anything about this offseason upcoming, whether that includes extension talks or trade talks? Do you think this like alters that in any way, shape, or form? Jesse saying no.
Yeah, not really for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think that this was once Mancini had the wonderful story. You know, if he were a player that was hitting 330 and putting up Vlad Guerrero numbers, 37 bombs, then maybe there's a chance that he would have been traded this year. But because he is he's a top 40% of players in the league. He is a good player, a solid major leaguer that any team would value, but he's not that superstar caliber. I think because of that placement, there's no overwhelming demand for him, and also with the story, with what he means to our clubhouse, to our fan base, I think it never made any sense to trade him this deadline. So I think this offseason is going to proceed as it would have before the deadline. That being said, what the Orioles have in mind, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think is that the CBA is changing this offseason. The DH might be going to the NL as well. And I don't know. I think we've kind of talked about that angle before. I mean, if NL teams get DHs, I think Trey Mancini becomes a much more marketable player, even on a 1-year deal versus a 1.5-year deal. So we'll see. Hopefully the season's not delayed, but that's a whole other thing we'll get into on a later episode. All right, so that's our trade deadline talk. Not a whole bunch from the Orioles, but at least from Eli and I's perspective, not that surprising either. So let's move on to a couple of promotions to the MLB squad, and we'll kind of just go down this a point at a time. So the most maybe interesting one is that Richie Martin is back. I will admit that I've kind of forgotten about Richie Martin a few times over the last 2 years. He's had a couple injuries, but he's up, and he actually started at second base in the game tonight as we record.
He's starting at short.
At shortstop, okay.
I was going to throw out, he's made 2 extremely nice plays while we've been recording.
Okay, because that was kind of his thing when he got taken in the Rule 5 pick, is like he's a major league ready glove, and he's going to be a light bat, and he was kind of a bad glove and a light bat in 2019, and we're encouraged by that, I guess. But Eli wrote here on our outline, does this kind of put a stop to the Jamai Jones call up rumors? Does Martin kind of slot in there ahead of Jamai Jones? I don't know, Eli, what do you make of Martin getting back to the big leagues before Jones does?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I put it in there because I really just don't understand it. I mean, Jamai Jones has been hitting the crap out of the ball. And I think that this promotion might be more reflective of Richie Martin than it would be of Jamai Jones. I think that they saw an opportunity and they said, who do we need to evaluate more? Who do we need more information on? And I think that answer is Ricky Martin. Ricky, wow. Richie Martin. I think that answer is Richie Martin. And I think, like you said, he's always been kind of a light bat, but he had shown a little bit better this year. So I think they're trying to evaluate how he will fit as a utility infielder on a major league team. And I think with Jamai Jones, they have more of a clear answer on that. I think they're more confident that he will be able to handle that role. And so while they have one slot open, getting information on Richie Martin makes a little more sense. And because he has had the previous experience, it feels like, his clock is expiring a little bit more than Jamai Jones's is.
Okay. Jesse's shaking his head in agreement. Jess, are you kind of on the same page as Eli?
Yeah, I mean, I also felt like part of it was the service time too, right? So Richie Martin played a full year for the Orioles. I mean, Eli's kind of shrugging because I'm assuming because these are utility infielders we're talking about. These aren't top prospects.
That's exactly it.
Right. This isn't an Adley that we want to hold on to for one more year after to stay in contention a year longer. Yeah, I mean, I think the information point makes sense. Yeah, I mean, Richie Martin played an entire year for the Orioles, so I think that they definitely feel confident that he can at least be somewhat serviceable, even though he had a really rough year. I think they know that he's not gonna. I mean, he could hit very poorly, but he'll play a solid defense for the most part. And hopefully his glove has improved a lot because defensively. The year he was up with us, he was shaky at short. So in the time that he played, so I think that's a lot of it. But yeah, it's frustrating because Jamai Jones, just like you said, has been really hitting the ball well, and he's definitely kind of the more I think exciting player at this point for Oriole fans to watch or to see, just especially because they haven't seen him play at the major league level yet. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think what you said, Jesse, was about like what type of players they are and sort of the type of prospects they are is an important thing to mention to kind of put all of this in perspective. Like the next time the Orioles are good, Richie Martin or Jamai Jones might be on the team. That's entirely possible, but I don't expect them to be like a key cog on that good team. They will be a bench player. Jamai Jones maybe better suited to that utility role, having some outfield experience. So yeah, I mean, I think in general, this isn't really that big of a deal. I know Richie Martin does bring speed off the bench. I would imagine they were encouraged by his glove because I think last year he was kind of anticipated as maybe making the team as a utility guy and then hurt his wrist. And then this year, I think it was sort of I think he was still kind of recovering from that in spring training. So he never really had a chance to compete for the spot. But yeah, I think Richie Martin's probably just a little bit further along too. And he's, got longer, more big league experience. So let's give him a go, see what he can do. And then this offseason, maybe there's tough decisions to be made. I would imagine Pat Valleca's not back on this team next year. And then that becomes sort of an open competition for second base because second base, shortstop, I don't know if Ramon Urias is the shortstop next year. I think that's an open competition too. So yeah, get everybody as many looks as possible. And we do know Jamai Jones is not a shortstop. We know that at the very least. So at least get Richie Martin some looks at shortstop for 2022.
Yeah, I'll throw out one more thing that should be admitted. As much as like Orioles Twitter has been going off about Jamai Jones and how crazy he's been going on the AAA competition. He has been slumping recently since the conversation first started when he was raking with like a 940 OPS. He definitely has cooled off and he's still hitting well above league average. I think his OPS is like 820-ish right now, but he has fallen off a little bit and the Orioles might be seeing that and saying, let him get his confidence back before that happens as well, before the promotion happens.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, some other promotions. The bullpen is getting shaken up. Shaken? I don't know. Either way. Shaken, not stirred. They have called up Dustin Knight, the guy that does backflips when he saves games.
Oh, yeah.
And Marcos Dieplan, who we've talked about on the pod before. He was in the futures game at the All-Star break this year for Mexico. Both of them have.
I have to correct you a little bit.
Please do. I was totally guessing on how to say it. Totally.
It's just Diplon. Marcus Diplon.
Marcus Diplon. He's up. So that's cool. And then to make room for them on the 40-man, Sean Anderson and Domingo Leyba have been DFA'd. So are we heartbroken over that at all?
I'm just so crushed. I've been weeping for hours. I don't know what to tell you guys.
I was very excited to see Sean Anderson go. No offense, Sean, but pretty much every time he came in, he'd pitch like one inning, give up 3 runs, it felt like. So that was good to see happen. Leyba, I mean, whatever. He used to be a top 100 prospect, I think, a long, long time ago. Never lived up to it, and it just didn't pan out. But, let's see some more arms. Dustin Knight, it'd be cool to see him close a game and do a flip and have Major League Baseball go insane over the unwritten rules. That'd be pretty dope.
Is he gonna get a save?
No, I doubt
it. For
the
Orioles, yeah.
He's like 30 years old.
Right.
I hope they give it to him just for the sake of it.
I mean, I think there is a possibility. I mean, Tate has been pitching pretty well, and it seems like that's the reliever they're going to recently. Just not even in safe situations, just to pitch the last inning, right?
Yeah.
But even if it's 7-1, they just go to him anyways, I guess, because there's so few save opportunities for the Orioles anyway that all our wins are going to be save opportunities. But in any case, I could see him getting an inning, at the end of a game or getting a save. I don't know. It's not inconceivable.
I mean, you'd have to have Cole Sulser unavailable, Paul Fry unavailable, Tate,
Probably
even
Taylor
maybe,
Scott.
yeah,
comes back up.
Valdez may be unavailable.
Or they pitched earlier in the game. I mean, I guess
that's what I'm
unavailable
saying,
in
yeah.
that way. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right. But
So
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, Dustin Knight has legitimately been pitching very well. Diplon was pitching really well too. He's gotten roughed up a little bit recently. Diplon has 26 strikeouts and 19 and 2/3. Dustin Knight, his strikeouts aren't as high, but he's still got a 1.30 ERA and a 1.08 WHIP. I mean, he's been pitching really well pretty much all year, and he's been getting a lot of love on Orioles Twitter as well. Just, for the backflips, for his consistently good performance. And the dude's 30 years old, which is, kind of surprising to see a major league debut at 30, but he, kind of revolutionized himself over the pandemic. He was one of those guys who, with a little extra time to work out and bulk up and refine some pitches, it did him wonders. So I'm hoping the best for him in particular.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like it's unheard of for the Orioles in particular to kind of debut these older, not debut, but give chances to older relievers. Cole Sulser, I think, was 30 years old last year as a rookie. Cesar
Mickey
Valdez
Janis this year.
Mickey Jan, although that didn't go great, but
It didn't.
yeah. Cesar Valdez was fun for a while, and he's still around, and he's older, although he wasn't a rookie, but he pitched a long time ago in the big league. So, hey, I mean, try it. Like we were just talking, relievers are super volatile. Maybe Dustin Knight catches, what's it called? Fire in a bottle. Like, what's it called? Electricity in a
Lightning
bottle?
in a bottle?
Lightning in a bottle. There we go.
Wow.
Look, guys, it's 9:00 at night. I have a 1-year-old. This is basically midnight to me. So you're lucky I'm awake. But yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Anything else to say on those moves before we talk about the one last move? No. And then the last move is just that Alexander Wells was optioned to Norfolk. He's kind of bounced up and down. He's been a bit of a disappointment. I think that's kind of a common thread with a lot of the Orioles' young pitchers this year. Kramer's been poor. Lothar, when he pitches, has been poor, and now he's hurt. Alexander Wells, I think he had a good start in Tampa, but in general has been a little bit of a disappointment. Eli, I don't know if you want to break down what you're seeing from Alexander Wells at all, or just maybe your comment, your overall impressions of sort of Alexander Wells' handful of big league appearances to this point.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything too specific to cue in on. I guess the big thing is that he doesn't have overwhelming stuff, and he was known as this pitchability control artist. I guess for those who don't know, pitchability is just somebody with a ton of feel. It's a very loose concept, but it just means that you're able to figure out what you need to do without good stuff, and you're able to execute anyways and still get people out. And he was known as a big pitchability guy, a super big command guy, someone who just had a feel for the strike zone, a feel for how to work his stuff in order to make it work. And the fact that he doesn't have that electric stuff is just biting him so hard. He hasn't been particularly sharp. He is missing spots. Pretty much everything that somebody like him has to do in order to be successful, he has not been doing. And I hate to put it in those strong of terms, but yeah, he really has been struggling. I think in his 3 starts, he's pitched like 13 innings and given up like 18 runs at this point. It's something very bad like that.
Yeah, it's not great. I mean, to kind of give you guys sort of a comparison. Bruce Zimmerman's also kind of referred to as a pitchability guy, but his fastball is like 3 miles an hour faster than Alexander Wells. I think he wants to go by Alexander. Alexander Wells is fastball, which, 3 miles per hour doesn't sound huge, but that's cutting down the time the hitters have to react to the pitch and everything like that. And, Zimmerman has even had struggles, and, you kind of have that big fastball to get by big league hitters sometimes. Jesse, do you have any impressions on Wells?
Hey,
I was just going to say
one real quick thing, Jess, hold on. I was wrong. It was 13 innings and 13 runs. So a little bit different, but I didn't want to hit him harder than he needed to be hit already.
That's fair. That's journalistic integrity.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Just to Tyler's point, I was just going to comment that. Yeah. Can I just start this over? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to Tyler's point. Yeah. I mean, 3 miles an hour. It in Major League Baseball, it is a big difference.
Yeah.
Someone who throws 88 and someone who throws 91, or someone who throws 91 and 94, like those are all very big distinctions.
97 and 100. Let's just
exactly,
keep listing off
yeah,
differences.
right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Correct.
54, 57.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So yeah, so those those do make a big deal. So I just wanted to confirm that, not confirm that, but just
Thank you.
yeah,
It's a little second.
re-emphasize that. Yeah, so that, I mean, the thing with Wells is, yeah, I mean, he's kind of in a situation. He had a tough assignment of going into the Bronx last night, and that did not go well. So I mean, the thing is, you know, he's going to get another opportunity. This was kind of like a little trial session for him. I'm not at all surprised that he got called up and got sent back down. You know, like, I would have been highly, highly, highly surprised if he made the major leagues and then just stayed here indefinitely through the end of his career, right? That probably was not going to happen. So, you know, he got a little taste. He's going to go back down, work on some stuff, right? And then try to come up again with a more perfected pitchability approach.
And I think also, again, it's sort of a good time to do some reframing of what he is and who he is as a prospect. Like, this is not a Grayson Rodriguez. This is not a DL Hall. Like, this is basically the repertoire of a guy that bounces up and down. You use his options for 3 years. And then after those 3 years, like, is he going to still be in the organization? I don't know. He's just kind of that type of pitcher. So it's not overly surprising. Hopefully he figures it out and does like a Jamie Moyer and sticks around for forever with a middling fast. Well, not even middling, a low end fastball. All right, let's talk about somebody else that's in the minor leagues, and he maybe shouldn't be in the minor leagues anymore. You know, if you talk to some people, Adley Rutschman's just kind of crushing it down in Double-A Bowie. As of this recording, he's got a 910 OPS, and that is from a 274 batting average, a 398 on base, and a 513 slugging percentage. He's playing a little bit of first base, a little bit behind the plate. He's now spent 75 games at Double-A Bowie. And Eli just added a note here that he's thrown out almost a third of potential base stealers when playing behind the plate. So people are starting to clamor for the way they're talking about Jamai Jones coming to the big leagues. They want even more for Adley Rutschman to move from Bowie to Norfolk. I think kind of a theory that's been thrown out there is that the Orioles want him to stick with Grayson Rodriguez and maybe DL Hall for a little longer. Eli, do you kind of buy that, or do you have another reason why he's still in Bowie?
Yeah, I threw that out on Twitter, and I talked with a couple people from the warehouse account regarding that. And the first thing I'll say is that I do not think he should be in Double-A. The second thing I'll say is that I can't possibly think of another reason why he's there. I mean, you know, somebody brought up service time, and it's like, I don't know, you know, maybe if you make the argument, you know, if you promote him late to Triple-A, you can make the argument he's had less time in Triple-A. I don't know how much that'll stand and how much the Orioles are playing that game. You know, if they're going to manipulate his service time regardless, you can just keep him in AAA and let that happen. But yeah, he's been there for 75 games, which is like 3/4 of the minor league season. He's been playing extremely well. He's got really like nothing to prove. And so when I look at this, I say, what are some other factors that could be keeping him there? And I think the fact, and yes, I understand that DL Hall is hurt, but the fact that DL Hall and Grayson Rodriguez are still at Double-A, I think it is the one thing that kind of makes sense. It's like, you know, these are the two guys that you want to cultivate the best environment for. You know, when you have DL Hall on the mound, you want the best pitch framer, the catcher who's going to control the run game the best. Quite frankly, you want him to have some run support, and Adley's bat helps with that. His glove helps with one, and his arm helps with the other. People talk about him as this, you know, pretty incredible leader. They say he calls the game really well. And I think there is an aspect to the Orioles enjoying that he is developing a relationship with Grayson Rodriguez. And, you know, despite the fact that DL Hall is hurt, they're all in the same meetings together. They're all going over film. They're all discussing, you know, pitch sequences. They're all doing everything together. They hang out together. We see it on Twitter all the time. So I think there is potentially something to the Orioles want Adley to be where the elite pitching prospects are. And somebody brought up the point that, you know, we've got like Bradish, Kevin Smith, and I forget the other name they brought up, but we have some guys at AAA at this point, and you would think they'd want him to get some time there too. And I don't have a good counter argument against that, except that they're not Grayson Rodriguez. It's an interesting point, and yeah, I'm not quite sure why the Orioles still have him in AA. Of course, like he still probably doesn't even have a full year of minor league time under his belt, but he's clearly outperforming that level. He's been doing it literally all year, and I think it's time to get him to AAA.
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess my thing is if he gets pushed to AAA, he's almost immediately gonna outgrow that level too. So I feel like just him being in the minor leagues, he's going to have already kind of sort of outgrown the level. So I don't think that AAA offers him a whole lot in terms of competition and that sort of thing. That is going to be that valuable to him. I think the point about him staying with the hopefully core members of the Orioles future, I think that is the key, and I think that is important. Catching Grayson Rodriguez through these starts, being there alongside the pitchers, like you were saying, being in the meetings, going over the film, etc. All of that, I think, is much more important that for him, in his specific situation. In other situations, maybe going to a slightly more competitive level would be more useful, right? But I think in his situation, I think that it is really important that he is kind of around the cornerstones of what the Orioles hope the future will be. So I think that is a very, very important point. And I think they want to try to keep the guys together to the biggest extent that they can. So I was going to say that also just at this point, Bowie is just a much more exciting place for a young player growing up, learning baseball to be than AAA is and then Norfolk is. So, Norfolk definitely has some talented players, but it's a lot of guys that are on this AAA shuttle, AAA Major League Baseball shuttle. Whereas the AA guys, the Orioles are really relying on to hold it down in the future. So I really think that trying to keep these guys together makes a lot of sense. I think your service time point is basically correct. That I don't think that's really factoring into it. But I think, yeah, especially a pitcher and a catcher developing these sorts of relationships, getting this sort of familiarity, I think is invaluable in the long run.
Yeah, and what I would say is, it's not that uncommon for a player to just completely skip AAA on the way to the big leagues. Like,
right.
I know
Machado.
Machado did it. Catcher is a little bit different. But I guess kind of your point, Jess, like why does he need to go to AAA? What's he going to glean from going to AAA that he can't get from spending time in big league spring training with these experienced pitchers and then spending time in AA with like the top tier prospects? The guys that are good, that are considered better prospects pitching wise that are in Norfolk right now, he's already caught at Bowie this year. I think Kevin Smith's up there. I think Bradish is up at AAA now. So
that's
it's
a really good point.
So I don't know, like, is Adley ever going to play at AAA? Probably, but is he going to stay there very long? I'm not so sure. We'll see what happens with the CBA again this offseason. I would imagine they're going to do something about service time manipulation. I don't know if that's going to impact current minor leaguers or a certain level or something like that, certain ages. But I could see the Orioles are going to probably keep Rutschman down in 2022 until like the second that they can, in order to get an additional year of team control, because why wouldn't you do that business wise? I'm not saying it's right. They shouldn't do that. They should get a player up as soon as possible if they think he's ready, but they're not going to. And we just kind of have to accept that. So I think maybe he spends time at AAA. It's not going to be very much, and he'll be up pretty shortly after the season starts in 2022 is what my thought would be.
Yeah, I just want to make one point for the casual fan. Chris Bryant was probably the poster child for service time manipulation, because they made up some BS about his defense and how he needed to be working on it. And quite literally the day after the service time manipulation cutoff, and I call it that, but after the cutoff for him to accrue a full year of service time, he got promoted, like quite literally the day after. And Bryant and his agent, I think it's Scott Boras, they knew it was so egregiously apparent that they filed a grievance, through the MLB Players Association with MLB, and it got denied. And so that's why Chris Bryant's going to be a free agent this year and was not last year, which he probably should have been.
Well, and you know what? It worked out for the Cubs. He was Rookie of the Year, won an MVP. They won the World Series. So it's like, what's the downside? Yeah, do it.
Right.
Of course.
Right. Yeah. So when Tyler says the second after that cuts off, Adley Rutschman will probably be up. He's not even exaggerating. I mean, I do think that if the Orioles were like an 80-win team right now and they thought Rutschman made us 5 wins better and this prospect makes us 5 wins better, I think he would be up as soon as possible. But like that, the White Sox have done that with some prospects. They've called him up immediately because the White Sox we're ready to win a World Series tomorrow. The Orioles aren't. They're bad. They're probably not going to be competitive again until maybe 2023, 2024. So why use up Rutschman now? They're just not going to do it. And it sucks, but it is what it is. So that's the Rutschman talk. We'll keep on top of that. I think that's going to be one of the big things to sort of watch this last month and a half or so, almost 2 months, because the Orioles are playing better baseball, but let's be realistic. They're not making some playoff push. So we'll talk minor leagues a little bit more often. But to that point, there's only a couple more weeks of the MILB season.
That's
the minor league shut down at the end of August.
True. And remember, September call-ups now, I think it's only 2 players come up. It's like they expand to 28 to 28 players, and that's it. So I don't expect that to be Rutschman. I think Jamai Jones could maybe come up then, and maybe a pitcher. But some other minor notes real quick. The Orioles released 3 minor leaguers of note. They released more than 3, but these 3 were kind of the most noteworthy. Evan Phillips, who the Orioles got in, I think, the Kevin Gossman and Darren O'Day trade from the Braves a couple years ago. They also released Cody Carroll, who was one of the 3 pieces in the Zach Britton trade. Now Dylan Tate is the only one left from that trade. And then Chris Shaw got released too. I think he was a waiver claim a couple years ago. Those guys were all released from Norfolk. No thoughts we really have there. Just kind of wanted to update you guys on that. And just kind of people have started to kind of go back to those 2018 trades and reevaluate the returns for Machado and Britton and Gossman and Scope and O'Day. And they're not great, but that's okay. Gene Carmona is kind of playing well down in Aberdeen, and I think he came over in the Scope deal. So keep an eye on him.
I will say that I have not fully given up on Dean Kramer. Like, I think he still has great stuff. He's super wild, but he's been in the league less than a year, so cut him some slack.
He'll be back in the rotation competition next year, I think. All right, so the week ahead, before we get into Oriole of the week, the Orioles are going to play 3 against the Rays. They're gonna wrap up this series with the Yankees, 3 against the Rays, 3 against the Tigers, and then they go to Fenway for 2 against the Red Sox. So we will chat about that next week. This week for the Oriole of the week, before we get into that, last week's Oriole of the week was Bob Melvin, who is the current manager of the Oakland Athletics. That was a little different one that I think, Eli, you mentioned you didn't know he was an Oriole. Right?
I did not know he was an Oriole.
Yeah, so sometimes you get those kinds of guys that are sort of low-key Orioles, and then they become famous for doing other stuff. So this week's Oriole of the week, we'll give you 3 facts. How it works is we give you 3 facts, and then if you want to play along, you can email us or you can tweet at us on at the Warehouse Pod on Twitter, or email thewarehousepod@gmail.com and let us know who you think the Oriole of the week is. The first fact about this former Oriole is that they played with the Orioles from 1961 until 1974.
This player won AL MVP in 1970.
And the layup for anyone who's ever been to Camden Yards, this player makes some of the best barbecue that Camden Yards has to offer.
Absolutely. If you don't get this one, shame on you. And
it'd be pretty disappointing.
Yeah. Don't unsubscribe, stay subscribed, but just try harder, I think is what I would say. Because we need the numbers.
Just go to a game and stop out behind the flag court in right field and get some barbecue and see who might be signing autographs there.
Absolutely. I'm going to my first game of the year next week, or this weekend. This weekend. Gonna get a bobblehead. pretty excited.
Taking the baby.
Taking the baby. Yeah, it's the kids cheer free thing. So we get like he's free because he's under 7 or whatever. So
Normally he would not be.
I don't know. We didn't even mess with it.
No.
We just wanted the extra seat anyway. So if we had to pay
Right.
for a ticket, I'd rather just get it for free. So that's pretty cool.
Cool.
But yeah, that's about all we got for that. Oh, sorry,
so-
Eli, go ahead.
Real quick, I have one note for you, Tyler. You should be pretty disappointed that the fan who lives in Florida has been to a game before you have.
I
And
know.
I do not have any children, but I found a way over to the west side of Florida to get to a game against the Rays before you made it like 30 minutes south to Camden Yards.
Look, a lot of factors at play, work schedules to figure out, like you said, a baby. That's the
Sounds a lot like excuses.
that is
Yeah,
the
I
trump
know.
card, man. A baby. Boom. You can't
We
even
can't-
argue with it. Can't compete.
I can plead blissful ignorance because I don't know how much work that entails, but you should have been to a game.
It's fair, but we're doing the Hall of Fame induction for JJ Hardy, Mike Devereaux, and Mo Gabba. So definitely
that's
gonna
awesome.
cry a little bit. So that'll be nice, and we'll get an Oriole bird bobblehead. So I'm looking forward to it, and we'll probably only stay for like 6 innings because the baby will fall asleep. So that'll be fun.
We also did not mention this on the pod. When Sanzi, Mo's mom, came out to the game throughout the first pitch, and Trey Mancini hit a home run and like came out of the dugout, looked up at her and waved, and she blew a kiss. That was just awesome.
Trey's awesome.
Yeah, for those of you who do not know Mo Gabba, you should do some Googling. I mean, kid's an inspirational story and really impacted a lot of people's lives in the Baltimore sports scene.
And his laugh is infectious, and it'll make you cry now. But yeah, it's tough.
We love Mo. This is a promo podcast.
Promo. All right. Well, I think that's all we've got for this week. What you guys can do to support the podcast is subscribe to it on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also give us a rating and a review. That would be awesome. And it helps us reach more people that may be interested in podcasts like this. And you can also follow us on various social media channels at The Warehouse Pod on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or you can email us, thewarehousepod@gmail.com, if you have any questions you would like for us to answer either via email or on the show. Eli, where can people follow you on the internet?
On the internets, I am at Twitter at Elijah Ginsburg.
Nice. Cool. And Jesse?
I am at Juggernaut8678 on Instagram and Twitter.
Very good. And I am at _Ty Young on Instagram and Twitter. And you can check out CamdenChat.com for some blogs. All right, fellas. Well, this was a good episode. And we will be back sometime next week. Cool?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yes.
Just real quick, Paul Fry heard us talking about him, and
boy.
he decided to give up a couple runs in spite.
Yeah.
Look, those relievers are volatile.
The
we've
Orioles
said.
are now losing 4-3.
They're also very sensitive, apparently.
And they have good hearing. So that's
Touchy.
all kind of cool.
Yes.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you. What?
He heard Jesse talking all the way from the other side of New York City.
Exactly. A couple boroughs away.
Right.
All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for checking out the Warehouse Podcast. Until next time, I'm Tyler.
I'm Jesse.
And I'm Eli.
Let's go O's.